Welcome to the Antlered Crown podcast, where we discuss brews, witchcraft, spirituality, and more.
We hope through conversation we can continue to learn something new from ourselves and from each other.
Today we're drinking some tea. It's just tea.
And then we're going to talk more about a popular figure in witchcraft.
So come on in.
Beyond the weather and the marsh, there is a whisper in the dark through the tides of disarray, where a wisdom knows the way. If you listen very still, there are answers to the endless, where the ancient pulses deep of the memories you keep.
Welcome to the Antlered Crown podcast. I'm Elwin, and I'm a fourth generational hedge witch.
Now, are you really?
I don't know, whatever. Yeah, I mean, honestly, you can say, like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's there, but if I don't say it, someone will ask for some form of credential, like it means something.
Yeah.
And you can't please everyone.
It's
People will ask for verification. Others will
Yeah.
contest the verification.
And then
So-
you're like, suck my nose.
Honestly, yes. Either way, I go around offending people just by being me. So I try and get it out the way early.
Absolutely true.
Exactly.
It's like, whose line is it anyway?
What?
What is the saying from whose line it is anyway? It's like, everything's fake and the points don't matter or something like that. I don't know. And I'm Amanda, the Antlered Queen, and I am so excited to talk more about Beauty and the Beast.
What? Oh, I see. I got it. No. It's a stupid way of putting it. All right. No. Amanda, he was called the Beast. But his name was Aleister Crowley.
Alistair
Crowley.
Crowley. You
So,
didn't like that? That was my. I wrote that
fantastic.
line. Did you?
yeah,
like that?
I got it. I got it afterwards.
It was so good.
And I like how you was like, no.
No.
In reality, what I said was, that's fucking stupid.
Oh my god.
Oh,
So Alistair Crowley.
Aleister Crowley.
Well, I would say Alistair.
Yeah, I do as well.
You just said Alistair.
Because it's posh. Wasn't actually his real name anyway. Right, so
Let's start with a description. Let's in our minds, because this is a podcast. We're gonna close our little eyes. We're gonna think of Alistair Crowley, and you're probably imagining like this very handsome man,
he was
maybe
he
a
was,
bit debonair.
He was
He
well
wasn't.
known for later on in life, which most practitioners are. Most practitioners, no one listens to someone who claims to be wise when they're young,
Yeah.
because they're young. But as you get older, and you know, especially in forms of philosophy, spiritualism, you go into your crone phase, shall we say. People listen to you more because your age shows. And so they're like, oh, they speak wisdom because they're old and life has been cruel to them. And so that's what he's remembered for.
Yeah.
That's where he comes into it. And so we have a... Well, do you want to describe it?
Yes. He was bald. Overweight.
All right.
White.
Yeah.
What?
Okay, that's all me so
Small
far,
lips?
basically. I've got rather luscious lips.
Oh, so luscious. A large nose.
My one's cute and dainty.
Protruding ears.
You can't see my ears. My cheeks fell out the way.
And he was born to a brewer's heir who assumingly knew a life free of poverty.
Fairly, yeah.
I mean, it depends how good of a brewer you are, I suppose.
They had servants, so put it that way. And then, however, a brewer's heir is one thing. I thought his father was a pastor.
No.
Are you sure?
I'm not sure.
I thought his
You're
father
the one who
was a
studied
pastor.
it.
Well, you're the one who wrote down he was a brewer's heir. Is that just a dream for you? All the beer.
One day. I don't know. My phone's over there, so I can't even look it up.
I could look it up if you
All
like.
right. Well,
We're so
you do
professional.
that.
Honestly, Aleister Crowley is not a favourite subject of mine. But nevertheless.
Well, that's yawn number 2. Take a shot. Take a shot, y'all.
Sure, what, coffee?
Yeah. Depends what time you're listening to this.
Edward Crowley.
Edward Crowley.
Is Crowley at 30 Square, Warwickshire.
Oh man, we're learning on
He
the
was
spot.
trained as an engineer,
Oh,
but
okay.
shares lucrative family brewing business.
Oh, bitch.
Crowley Alton Ales also allowed him to retire before his son was born.
Mm.
So yeah, he was very well off. If he retired before
Before
he even
you-
had a kid,
yeah,
I like to
holy
retire
moly.
before I had kids.
Yeah,
Trust me,
right.
Make it a whole lot easier.
Oh God.
Yeah, so
I love it.
Nora.
So maybe he was named Aleister Crowley.
His name wasn't originally Alistair. Yeah. Anyways, right.
Well, what made him such a popular figure in occultism?
By rights, that was my stomach.
That was your tum
That was
tum.
my tummy going.
Oh, this one nice.
no."
It's saying, I don't like this topic.
He wasn't. He
Mm.
wasn't as popular as he is now in the modern days. One of the things that actually kind of reignited him in the way of recognition was the front of one of the Beatles albums.
Wasn't he that triangle head?
What?
That popular photo.
He has his against his temples, yes, but that wasn't it technically. If you see, I can't remember the name of the Beatles album, but it's the one where they have all the famous people, all kind of like all jumbled up there. It's like a group photo of famous people, a collage of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Aleister Crowley is quite close at the forefront of that. And that famous kind of photo of him has been bandied around. He had notoriety in his career as an occultist and writer, most certainly.
Yeah.
But he is a topic of divided opinion, shall we say?
Is that why he's so controversial today?
I'll tell you one thing. He's controversial today because of what we call the woke community now.
Woke.
The woke community now is look at this man who was born in a time past our own, long gone, and say, he was a womanizer. He was sexist. Yes, he was. But so was your great-great-great-grandfather, who probably was around at the time of Aleister Crowley, and so was most other people who were white males in the Western world. Like, so we condemn everyone in the past? Like,
Yes.
I'm not excusing it. No, I'm not excusing it. But at the same time, it's like, yes, of course he was a womanizer. Like, of course he was all these things. Because he grew up in a time where it was perfectly acceptable to do that. It was what you grew up with. It was just there, you know. I mean, for goodness sakes, look at the 1970s. You see some of the things that they did in the 1970s. Look at some of the things that Walt Disney allowed to be produced in the way of film, and tell me that that's not incredibly racist, that's not incredibly sexist.
Right.
And yet they still show these things. You know, we can accept, I believe this is the problem with things like this, with Aleister Crowley. We can accept that it was wrong and people were wrong and their viewpoints were misguided, definitely. However, that the work they contribute in some form, you have to separate from that. Otherwise, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and there's no point. Think about how woke you are now and how woke people are in this new generation that's coming in. You do not think that in 200 years' time people are going to think that some of the things that they did are positively archaic. You know, but we work within the times that we do, and we try to be more progressive than our current state, always. But this is
Oh, sorry.
No, go on.
I just wanted to interject. The way I deal with historical things of this nature, of racism or prejudice or just non-acceptance of others, is if they were alive today and they saw how the world was today, would they apologize for how they've been? And then I judge it on that. And you know, like, some people clearly were not going to apologize today
No,
for
definitely.
having slaves and wanting to keep slaves or, like, some horrible, hateful shit.
Mhm.
So I think that's a good way to look at it. And I don't think Aleister Crowley would apologize for his behavior today. I think he'd still be a womanizer.
Yeah.
And kind of a horrible person.
No,
So-
I completely agree. He probably would. Another thing is he'd probably be more successful today.
Yeah, that's
Because
true
at
with
the
the
end of the
internet.
day, man had a huge ego, and all he wanted all his life was a platform, a sounding board, an orange
Yeah.
box. And he made do with what he could, and he was successful with what he had available to him. Imagine what he could do now.
Oh, God.
It's quite scary, actually.
Yeah, actually it is.
It's quite scary. So there is a sense of, although I, particularly myself personally, I do not like Aleister Crowley. I'm not a fan. I do admire what he was able to achieve when everything was stacked against him, to be honest. And his life is a troubled one. Not troubled in the sense that you may think, but definitely troubled. And I think that you have to take into account that the man was not mentally all there.
Yeah.
I have to say that because that does come into the account when people talk about the occult. Some people, they get fanciful, and no one really takes into account the mental stability or the health that person was in to begin with.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to remember
Right.
here. So why don't you go ahead and yeah. Why don't you? As I said, I will try to fill in what I can.
Okay.
But he's not something of mine that I have diligently researched. You know, because I'm not
Right.
a fan.
Well, I can tell you that he was an avid mountain climber, and we can talk about the controversy involving his expedition when his group split.
Yes.
Because 3 of the climbers who left their group after an argument triggered an avalanche that claimed their lives.
It was him who left.
No, he asked the others to leave because of his leadership style.
Yeah, no, they apparently they disagreed with his leadership because he was the amateur compared to others around him. And he said, I don't like this. It doesn't feel safe. I don't like the way the weather's turning. And they said, like, get real. Like,
Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about. And they pushed him out and made him feel unwelcome because apparently he was a little bit of a twat. Regardless, that's what they say. He was a bit of a twat. And so he left. Now, that's where the controversy, one of the first controversies really begins with Aleister Crowley, is that they then
Were yelling for help
were yelling for help.
on the other part of the mountain, and he admitted that he did
heard
hear
them.
them yelling for help, but he thought they were just having a gay old time.
Yeah, and jeering at him basically.
And and he didn't think they needed help, which is speculative because they died.
Yeah.
So did he really just think? I mean, I feel like if you hear someone screaming help and are desperate, but then again, it's like echoing across the mountain. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I mean,
He could have even been so mad as a practitioner that he,
but he wasn't really a practitioner in his right then.
yeah.
He was quite a young man, remember, by that point. However, I do believe he would have went back because I think, regardless of whether or not you like people, if you are thrown into a situation that can be dangerous, like climbing a mountain, you bond with them to the point where you will try to help. So
Yeah.
I think, honestly, that although there was a lot of stuff that, because of his own, throughout his life, will create a legend, really, of this person that they call the Beast. He didn't do any favours. I think, in fact, he actually fed those rumours to kind of sow this speculation about him and this darker side of him. And I think this was one of the things that started it in some way. I like to believe that he didn't just hear them calling and then left them, because that takes a really terrible piece of work to do something like that, regardless of whether or not you like the people, you know?
Right. He also lost his virginity at 14 with a maid in his parents' bed. We've actually had an argument over this.
Did we?
Yeah, and his parents fired the maid, who then became an alcoholic because they didn't have a job and didn't have a place to live, and then became a victim of Jack the Ripper.
Yes, that was right.
We had an argument
We
because
did have an
I
argument.
think he forced himself on the maid because that was pretty common practice.
You have to
Because he
think-
seems kind of sexually deviant in
Well-
his later years.
Okay, we did have a conversation.
Do you
about
remember
this.
this argument?
A bit of an argument.
Yeah,
However,
and you're like, he
you-
could have just liked the maid, and the maid liked him, and they just got it on. And
No,
I'm
no,
like,
no, that's
I
not what I
don't think
said.
this is what
I
happened.
didn't say that. One thing you said, because he seemed to be a sexual deviant. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
However, you are using words of the time. Remember what I said at the beginning about
Mm.
how he was portrayed at the time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but there are many people in this world now who you could also class as sexual deviants.
Oh, I'm a
purely
sexual
because-
deviant.
No, but purely because they are bisexual,
Yeah.
and they have more than one lover.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make them a sexual deviant. However, of that time, that is what they classed him.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if he was 14 years old, the maid was probably, I can't remember how much the maid was older, but we don't know how old the maid was. I believe that she was probably in her 20s. If this was any other thing, if this happened in a classroom now in this country, you would throw the maid or teacher or whatever in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not it's because it's a boy. I did make the point of saying at the time when you said this, that if it was a girl who'd lost her virginity to the gardener, it would be a very different outcome, and you wouldn't be saying
That's true.
that the girl, you wouldn't turn around and say, oh, the girl was a sexual deviant, she was a slut. And so,
I don't think I'd say that.
no, but what I'm saying is, but it's okay when it's a boy. And I remember we had this conversation because I just thought it's important to remember this, because even though the person in question is Aleister Crowley, sure, the person in question is a 14-year-old boy
That's true.
who is Aleister Crowley.
That's fair. He
It's-
could have been forced, is your point that you're making.
It's also the point I'm making, but it's that thing, it's that question that you asked the other day about, if you could, would you go back and kill baby Hitler? And I said no, because
is
it's a
from
baby. It's not done
Morgaine
anything yet.
Tarot's podcast.
I know, but it's regardless of what the child is quote quote destined to do, the child is completely innocent at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that he was innocent. He may not have been. You know, at 14 years old is, you know, old enough to commit horrible things.
Yeah.
But I'm also saying let's be open about this, so when you don't actually know what's happening.
That's true.
You don't know what's happening.
We don't
but,
know what's happened there.
You know, because it may have been mutual. The girl also, it wasn't uncommon for a girl to go into service as a maid
Mm-hmm.
at the same age, or at least a couple of years older, 15, 16 years old. In which case, maybe they both just liked each other. Apparently, he lost his virginity in his parents' bed.
Which is gross.
With the maid as well. So I don't know how that came about, how they know that either.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask me? You missed a couple of the first questions. as
Yeah.
Well, so,
Well, I want to know why he was called the Beast.
once again, something that was fed and misunderstood in some way. As I said, I don't like him. I sound like I'm defending him a lot, but I'm trying very hard. When I started to research more about Crowley, I tried very hard to kind of be unbiased about it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found was that his mother had named him the Beast at a young age. She was, oh, you beast, you know, like that. And it's the idea because from a young age, he wanted to be a mountaineer. So he would often climb trees. He would get into mischief, get into problems. He would often get covered in mud and dirty. He was a very unruly and rebellious child.
Mm-hmm.
And his mother, from a very young age, called him the Beast. And it's something that stuck. I think he carried that with him, and it was something that he fed, once again, to create this persona of himself, and also to feed his career as an occultist. The Beast, you know. And remember, at the time, to be called the Beast came with an echo. It came with a why
Yeah.
called the beast. People would they would jump to all manner of conclusions, and I think he liked that. He liked to upset people.
Yeah.
He liked to shock people.
Yeah.
But then again, so do I. But,
Do you know about the philosophical religion called
Thelema.
Thelema?
Yeah.
Thelema?
Or Thelemic. Or Thelemites, I believe.
Is that similar to like Gardenians?
No. Well, apparently Crowley was contacted through a kind of a uniform spirit, this kind of disembodied spirit form of consciousness that made itself aware to him as Awais or Awas, and it basically dictated to him a whole book, apparently.
Oh my god.
That he wrote, which was the beginnings of Thelema. And it uses primarily a lot of Egyptian gods, and yet he does actually say that they are a literary convenience, that they're just basically standings for something. It's in the same manner of which, if you look at Wicca, Wicca has the god and the goddess, don't they? That's what they usually use. It's just the god and goddess. Now, you, the individual, if you are a Wiccan, may say that your god is Canonos or Hern or whatever. And the goddess could be anything in that sense, a mother aspect. Some people just go with the broad kind of Gaia, in the way of Mother Earth. And yet it's the same thing. It's a literary convenience. So I believe that these, once again, are just...
sorry, there's a lawnmower going past the house behind us.
Is that a lawnmower? What the fuck is that? Are we being invaded? Has it happened? Has the army been called out?
Oh, the lawnmower. They're
We're
going.
just
They're
talking
going
about
past.
Crowley. Calm down.
They've gone past. You can
Okay.
go.
Right. So, yes, I think that, these are just stand-ins. And at the point, he was very matter of fact. And for a ceremonial magician, he wasn't really one for ceremony. He was very slapdash and very kind of dismissive of certain things that even he used in practice.
Oh, that sounds like me.
I was going to say it sounds a lot like me
Yeah, it does
as
sound
well,
like you.
because I'm like that. I'm like, you right, do this and do that, and then I'm like, oh, don't do it. I don't fucking care. I'm just like, figure it out.
Figure it
You
out
figure it out,
yourself.
like, honestly. So yeah, there are so many things, because there's certain aspects in his life where he's quite progressive. In the modern age, he would fit in quite well, and in others he's not. In others he is like, he contradicts that which he does so much,
Yeah.
in the way of like, he's quite open sexually.
Yeah, he was bisexual.
He was bisexual.
Even, yeah.
He actually fell in love, and they believe, I think it was in one of his journals, he's actually said for the only time he truly felt he was in love was with a man.
Aww.
And they stayed together for some time. I can't remember the name now, honestly, but they eventually parted ways.
We will call him Maccabees.
Maccabee.
Yes.
All right, fair enough. But yeah, they parted ways, and I believe, well, from what I've understood, is that when they did, he wasn't fully himself again.
Yeah.
I think he had a taste of what he
It
felt
could
was
be the right
true
thing.
to himself,
Yeah.
and he was angry. I think in many ways he was angry at a system that he really didn't fit in properly.
Yeah.
And he was very open about it, whereas many others weren't. People within the same order, for instance, like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, he was a member of many different kinds of societies and occult societies.
Yeah.
But like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn had a lot of famous people in it. All right, I believe even Charles Dickens was a member.
Holy moly.
Well, Charles Dickens was actually very into occultism and spiritualism. He would often attend seances because he lost his wife. And he would often try and... Well, anyways, this is about us. Crowley. The thing is that a lot of these, like, artists, writers, people in political standing, all of them, well, not all of them, but many of them had different sexual exploits that they kept under wraps.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
Charles Dickens did, okay? I'm just saying that a lot of them did. He did too, but the difference was, I think, that he was very open about it.
Yeah.
And people didn't like that. They were like,
Yeah.
well, you know. And it's like,
If
but
I
you're-
can't come out, you can't come
And he's
out.
like, but you're doing it too. It's like, yeah, but we don't say we're doing it. Which
We don't talk about Fight
you know,
Club.
yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people didn't like the fact because to be affiliated with him meant that you probably was also.
Yeah.
You know, and they didn't like that. They were
Maccabees
so
didn't like
far
that.
back in the closet. They were in fucking Narnia, and he was just like, no, fuck this.
Ayo.
But that is also on this element of hedonism,
Yeah.
which became part of his philosophy in many ways. Is that to truly enjoy life and to truly find your sense of truth, that you must be completely open and honest with what you do instead of denying yourself and hiding who your true nature is. You should express it and be proud of it. And I think that was a constant struggle with him.
Right.
A constant struggle with him. He was put down as, however, a womanizer. He didn't really think, from what I understand, from what I've read, he didn't think much of women in that sense.
I mean, we weren't allowed to be much in that time.
As I was saying, but the thing is, like, many people didn't. Like, you know, it's very easy to have a pop at Aleister Crowley, but Aleister Crowley was open. Many of these people did exactly the same things, but they just pretended that they didn't, and they stayed silent on the matter, you know. So, yeah, he was a bit of a dick in that manner. He was a bit of a dick.
Well, he also studied he studied chess, and he was the chess club president at Cambridge.
He did. He went to Cambridge. He didn't actually graduate from Cambridge either.
No, he also went to Trinity.
Yeah.
Didn't graduate there either.
No, he didn't. I
Sounds
think
like someone I know.
I did graduate. How dare you?
You didn't graduate college.
I didn't go to I did go to college.
You
I
did.
did science and chemistry, biology in college.
Yeah, but you didn't graduate.
No, that was when I went to and did archaeology. Then I didn't graduate, but it didn't matter because I wrote a thingy and sent it, and then they offered me a job. And I said, but I didn't graduate, and they was like, I don't care. I was like, neither do I then. So it didn't matter. And then I worked as an archaeologist and just worked my way up from there.
Yeah.
So up yours.
yeah.
Well, to call people out and shit. You didn't finish high school.
Yes, I did.
No, you fucking didn't.
What are you talking
No,
about?
you didn't. You didn't fucking finish high school. You had to have private tuition to finish.
No.
Yeah, you did.
No, I still
Well,
went to high school.
How about this?
I
How
just
about
took
this?
accelerated classes because I ditched so much I had to make up time.
Yeah, exactly. So how about this? You delete that bit about me not finishing, and we can delete that bit about you not finishing.
Nah,
Bloody
why is this
cheek.
under the table?
That is one that Momo did for me because I left one that I messed up, and then she got the paint and did it, and she did it all herself. She went, "Look, Dad, I did it for you."
Oh, that's so nice.
It was very nice, actually. She must have been watching me. Anyways,
Can you tell me more about maybe any kind of rumors or anything weird,
a lot of
nutty?
the rumors took place when he moved to Europe later on in life, and basically he started a commune. It was a kind of a monastic kind of commune, this Thelaumic thing, where a lot of his friends, one person in particular, I can't remember his name, and I'm sorry, but I have a terrible memory, but you can look all this up. One of his friends basically got very malnourished, became quite ill. I do believe that later on he did die.
Holy
However,
shit.
it wasn't really to do with him. It was more to do with the fact that the man just got ill. But his wife basically called out Aleister Crowley and said about all the things that had been happening in this settlement, in this kind of temple place that he'd set up for people.
You mean the cult?
It was a cult, basically.
Yeah.
Where they would sacrifice cats.
Aww.
And there was stuff there to do with children and just other things. And
Oh no.
the thing is a lot of it was unsubstantiated. No one else seemed to actually correspond with what this woman said. Corroborate. And so you could either say that, yes, this is a massive change of things in the way that Crowley did things, or you could say that this woman was just incredibly angry at Crowley because of her husband's death, because at the time her husband was a good friend of Crowley's, but then they fell out. So it's as broad as broad as it's long.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but there you have it. There are some other things. One of the most famous ones is that he he lays siege to the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn.
Oh my god.
Because they kicked him out.
Oh boy.
And he, with a few of his followers, basically he decided that he wanted a lot of the records and the books and papers
The
that
records?
they had.
Oh,
Because
sorry.
he contributed to a lot of the ceremonies and the laws and things that they had kind of rewritten. And so he wanted those. And so he turned up with his ceremonial garbs and a lot of his followers in ceremonial garbs. And then from the bottom of the steps, the orders, the remaining members of the Hermetic Order, formed a link at the top of the steps to stop them getting past. And then Crowley and his followers started kind of shooting curses at the followers.
Oh my god.
And the followers then started
like abracadabra at them?
then started repelling them and be like sending counter curses back. Ah! And this, I can just imagine. You imagine being like a Bobby, like, or in other words, a police officer at the time with your helmet and your truncheon, just walking around the corner and seeing this, be like, I don't know how to, I don't know what I should do here.
Oh my gosh, if you're gonna curse me, what would you do?
Oh, don't ask. Then apparently Crowley ascended the steps, and I don't remember. It was a famous. I think it was Yeats. Kicked him down the stairs.
No.
And he tumbled down the stairs, and then security or the rest of them just bodily picked him up and threw him into the street. Yeah.
Bitch, be gone!
And he claimed to exact his rewenge as he ran off into the night with his cape billowing behind him.
You will not get me!
Honestly.
Oh my God.
I will be back with great numbers. Just ran off.
Give me my records!
But I believe he purchased a place in Scotland as well, where it was a mansion where he
Of course.
it wasn't a massive it wasn't like a state home, but it was a mansion where he and some other of his followers after that then kind of tried to set up base. He had a lot of starts. He was one of those people who seemed to have a lot of like false starts with stuff. Like, okay, that fell through. Never mind. Get back on the horse.
Yeah.
A new startup. A new name, new image.
Just a lot of different. It sounds like he has the connections, the opportunity, and the drive, but he just never. Something always got in the way of it finishing or coming to a nice end. Everything feels very abrupt.
Most certainly. You have to take into account though also that we look at Crowley now and we realise that he was a shit.
Yeah.
But it's mainly because of the insensitivity to what he was doing at the time. And I do understand, and I am not a fan of Crowley, but I do often try to tell people and ask people to think that it was not just Crowley. There were plenty of other people who weren't even known to be occultists, who were using things that were Islamic in nature, Judaic in nature in their practice, that they had no right to do, were performing in these sex cults and sex kind of acts of magic.
Yeah.
And these people, they weren't, they just did it secretly. So if you're gonna harp on about Crowley was a bastard, of which he was, and there's no doubt about that, you have to group in most of the aristocratic society of London, Paris.
Sorry, ignore that.
Of London, Paris, and America.
I mean, yeah,
New
it was
York
just
and
that time period,
Precisely, yeah.
They were all racist.
They were all, of course, they were. To an extent.
Swingers, basically.
Kind of.
Nothing wrong with being a swinger.
Well, it's not for me. But, I mean...
Jesus, babe.
Well, it's just not for me.
That's all right.
I'm like a swan or an otter. I have my mate, and that's my mate, and I don't really want anything else. That's you, by the way.
It's a me.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Is it for me?
Yeah.
Am I an alternative?
I don't know. I wonder. Right. But so, yeah.
So let's talk about the cake of light.
It's your favourite.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let me
wait.
think. It's a cake. It has a flashlight in it.
A flashlight.
Yeah.
My stomach is making terrible
Your
noises. I'm
tummy
sorry if
is
you can hear
having
that.
a field day
I
with
don't know
today.
what's going on.
Your tummy really doesn't want to talk about this. Isn't
My tummy's like,
Not a
can we
vibe.
stop now? Yeah. Okay, the cake of light.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
The wafer participants ate during the mass of Phoenix were made from male semen or menstrual
Oh my
glands.
gosh.
To be honest, I mean, like, there is, I
Did
know
people
for a
eat?
fact
I
that
mean, just
certain schools that are well known, even now, like
Oh, no.
Cambridge
Oh no.
and Oxford,
Oh no, I don't want
Eton,
to. No.
the schoolboys play a game called Soggy Biscuit, where they take a biscuit, digestive usually, because it's quite a rugged biscuit that can take,
I don't want to know.
and they all put their stuff on it, and then the last person to do so has to eat the biscuit.
So they stand in a circle and come on it?
Yes.
Oh my freaking goodness.
Yeah.
Oh
That's
my
stomach. My
gosh.
stomach does not like this subject. It's like, no, not for me.
Don't want to kick a light.
No, thank you. And yet, like, once again, it seems like, to be honest, someone with a Cambridge education who mixed with the wrong sorts decided to apply what they had experienced to magical practice.
So you were talking about light cakes before we were very rudely interrupted by a
hardly
small
rudely, but-
person.
Yeah, so light cakes, basically they'll just come on a wafer and they'd all tuck into it.
I feel like they baked it. I feel like they baked it into the cakes.
Possibly.
I don't think it was just. I think they came in the mixture, and then they baked the mixture, so it was a
They
cum
just
cake.
gave it to like an old Mother Hubbard woman who just whisked it like, oh, you boys, you are funny. Like, she just pours it into the mixing bowl. Like,
Oh dear, you seem to have bled into the cake again. That's
Oh, no.
all right.
what are you doing? I'm making fish cakes.
No.
Oh no.
Dear
I'm
me.
ashamed of myself. No.
Maccabees, how dare you allow this to happen?
Maccabees.
Not to be confused with Mac and Bees. This is Mac Bees.
Well, that's just MacNeebs.
Yeah, Mac Neebs.
Yeah. You got a shout out there.
You did.
Anyways.
Anywho. Oh my god.
Yeah. So after numerous upstarts, he was married for a while as well, by the way.
Well, good
And
for
he
him.
had a child.
Did he really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Was
and
it a boy? Was it a girl? Was it a
girl.
they, them?
It was a girl. And I believe his wife and child eventually, he survived them. They died.
Oh.
I believe. I may be wrong about that, but I remember feeling very sorry for him then. I'm thinking, oh, that must have been terrible. You know, he seemed to just spiral. Every little failure that happened to him, everything just spurned him on to make really weird and strange decisions and get weirder. And
I mean,
there's a lot of rumours about him that are unsubstantiated, but nevertheless they're there because that's what rumours do, don't they? You don't need evidence. Once someone says it, it's said. You know.
oh, tell them about how his doctor wouldn't give him any more drugs, so he cursed him
'cause
and
of
he
the morphine
died.
dependency, which
Yeah.
is a big thing. And some people actually say that Aleister Crowley is what kind of inspired Sherlock Holmes. Because Aleister Crowley was, you know, a drug user in that sense. And there's this idea of Sherlock Holmes being this kind of upstanding aristocratic gentleman.
Oh, gentleman.
Who is like a confirmed bachelor and yet has this kind of reputation that precedes him of being something of a, you know, not gentlemanly. And so, yeah, he cursed his doctor because his doctor reportedly cursed his doctor. His doctor wouldn't give him any more morphine.
Damn.
Because he was abusing it, apparently. I think, to be honest with you, why wouldn't you? I would. And he died, obviously, but he died in poverty, which is quite sad. Regardless of anything else, he died in poverty. No one really knew who he was by that point.
Yeah.
It was not a happy ending for him.
Oh, well.
As I said, but as I said, is that I think a lot of people look at the different things because the guy wrote so many. He's got personal journals, he's stacks of books the man wrote, and his knowledge is fairly extensive of occultism, ceremonial magic. Okay?
Yeah.
Misguided in places, sure, okay. However, he did kind of found the basis of what a lot of ceremonial magic is, and I would be hesitant to remiss that I think one of the greatest things that Aleister Crowley has actually taught us is how the ego can truly corrupt a magician or a witch, and it can. What we had there, what I believe, he was a man who was not really within his right mind,
Yeah.
who had problems, different kinds of, chauvinism and narcissistic tendencies, yes, perhaps, but this may have stemmed from anything. We don't know. We don't really know. What we do know is that he was clearly a troubled individual.
Yeah.
Who was looking for something. He was ultimately looking for something, the sense of spiritual experience in many ways. I mean, from a young age, he was technically an atheist in many sense of the word. He didn't really believe in God. It didn't make sense to him. But then how many of us have started that way?
Yeah.
We hear what the Bible says or something and we think that's fucking ridiculous. So then we think for ourselves. And I think to do so openly at that time, you weren't gonna have a happy ending.
Yeah.
The man was trying to carve out something that didn't exist and wasn't allowed to exist in that world at that time. And ultimately that's what it was. And I would as much as I disagree with a lot that the man did and who he was and what he may have stood for, I will ask you to be forgiving in the nature of the way that you look at his life. Me, myself, have been the subject of rumour purely because I am a practitioner. People think that I just go around hexing people, and regardless, no matter who you are, if you are a witch and you are a practitioner and you do it long enough, people around you are going to be unlucky one day, and then they will eventually speak out loud of what they're thinking, that maybe you're the reason.
Yep.
Maybe it's because you're a practitioner. Maybe it's because you're a witch that these things are happening. Maybe God is punishing them because they know you. And these things follow, and other people join in, and they all talk. That's very strange, actually, because I saw them the other day, and they seemed to know this about me when I went for a reading, and they did. And it's like, it soon adds up. All those things, because you are just trying to live the life that you want, the way that feels true to your nature, doesn't correspond with theirs, means you are guilty of something. And he is a perfect example of that. A perfect example of that.
There you have it.
So, if you'd learn anything from him, remember that, I would say.
Well, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook as The Antlered Crown, or on YouTube as Elwyn the Witch.
I offer a variety of readings, including bone, tarot, medium connection, deity confirmation, as well as spiritual consultations, which are done live and scheduled via Zoom. I am also offering spell work, custom merchandise, all of which you can find on my website, theantleredcrown.com.
I do want to mention here that we have started doing a merch drop every month, so you're interested in, hagstone necklaces or talismans or
wands.
bone art, or we're always trying to switch it up every month. And if there is a pagan holiday when this is released, we will have usually a witch box, 5 to 10 available, and that can help you celebrate your pagan holiday for that month. So check out the website, and also on Instagram, we're usually posting the week before when we're going to have a merch drop. You can also join our community on Patreon and get access to the Discord server, the group meetings, the one-on-ones with Elwyn. You have tutorials, you have discounts, and other goodies, depending on the tier level you choose.
Speaking of which, here's our Antlered Crown patron shout out for this month.
Yeah. This is actually a couple of people from December and January.
It is.
So we have some catching up to do.
We do.
But Mare, Amanda, Bunny, Colleen, Charlotte, Amanda, April, Jackie, Cherie, Cherish, and Elisa.
Yeah.
Hello,
Thank you for joining
everybody.
the Patreon.
Thank you for joining. Some of you have already left. It's okay. We still love you for the time you were
Well,
here.
don't tell people that. What's wrong with you?
Thanks for coming. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, bitch.
Nice. And we expect them back any time now.
But if you want to join this,
She takes things so personally.
I
really don't that much.
Don't. Usually.
You just said you don't.
So next time we're going to talk to a
I
personal friend of the podcast about deconstructing from organized religion. And always remember,
Tip your wedges, bitch.
bye-bye.
Bye.